Hello and welcome to this edition of Exotic Gardening UK Yorkshire Kris Weekly, and in this episode we'll be looking at the setup of my new Growlight. Now in the last episode we got the Mars TSL 2000 Growlight and we unboxed it. In this episode I'm going to be looking at the setup, and also the other thing that arrived last week was the grow tent, which is this big black box to my right, so we're going to have a look at that as well. Now I should say this Growlight is the first major Growlight I've had. I have had a smaller Growlight that's just sort of the pinky red circular light with a few LEDs that I've used over my propagator for the last 5 years. It does get pretty warm but not too hot, but it only covers a small area for really active growth. The grow light that's in this grow tent is much larger, covers a much larger area of about 60 centimeters by 120 centimeters, so about, what's that, about 3 by 5 foot, something like that, and it is very powerful, as you'll see in this video. So here is the Mars Hydro TSL 2000, and it's the upgraded version of this model. So I'll go through how I set it up, the features it's got, and any issues I may have with it, and the positives and negatives. So it was well packaged, as we saw in the last episode. Instructions are straightforward and there's not really much setting up to do. The only thing I had to do really was attach these ballasts and the controls onto the actual top of the light, and they're just done by these little screws here. You don't need a screwdriver, you're just literally turning it because it's got these little bits that just slot under, and then this presses down and holds it in place. One on either side of the control panel, one on either side of the ballast, and that's it. That's all what keeps it attached, but it's firm enough. One thing I should point out is this part here has like a blue film on it. That's just to protect it, so obviously I've pulled that film off. That wasn't in the instructions, but it's pretty obvious to pull that off. It's like when you get a new phone screen or something like that you tear off. And then also, because it's a new model, this has separate controls so you can dim the lights here, because on the old model, well, it's still the TSL 2000, you had to undo this, get a screwdriver and turn the dimming. Whereas on this improved version, you've got a separate dimmer here. So you can see it goes from obviously 0 to 100%, and that makes a massive difference to the light output. And it's a lot easier just to turn a knob and get a screwdriver out and mess about with both of these to change that. So setting it up was easy in terms of screwing those on place. And then a power cord goes to a power supply. And it comes with these little wire hangers, which attach to these ratchet hangers, so I can just press the little lever here and I can pull this up and down. You can see I've got it attached to this bar up here, so that clips over. You can see how it clips over basically. Just loop that over, put it through the cord, and that keeps it nice and stable and strong. And you've noticed I've got this in a grow tent. So you don't need to use this with a grow tent. You can just use it on a shelf or just generally light in an area. But I've got a grow tent here which is super reflective. I'm going to show you how reflective it is in a minute. So just back to the power supply, like I said, general on off switch. And then we've got the 0 to 100% over here. If I just turn this up, you hopefully can see, whoa, the brightness goes up a lot. And if I look down there, look how bright that is, and turn it down, and it's still very bright, although it's difficult for the camera to show that because it's always trying to compensate for any brightness or darkness. I'm not going to do a scientific test on how bright this is because I don't have that equipment. I'm just going by the instructions, basically showing it's a very bright light and it's pretty even spread. So I'll just turn the LED down a bit and we'll just go under and look at the actual LEDs. So we just turn the camera up, You've got mainly white LEDs, some blue and some red, so you've got the full spectrum of light for growth. And obviously the camera's compensating for the light on this. And like I said, I've got it in a grow tent, so it's got various things like holes here for if you want fans or extractors to move the air about. You've got little pockets for putting tools or information in, and also these actually are vents, so they can pull up the other side. It's like a mesh going across here, so it allows the air to flow, because obviously when you zip this up it's going to be quite self-contained, so you need some airflow. And I've just put a plant in here just now, just to show you what it looks like with a plant in. And it's actually, the base of this grow tent is highly reflective as well, and it's like a little tray, so it comes out this basically, but it captures any soil or any muck or anything in here, and you can clean that out separately to the actual grow tent itself. And this is a Begonia luxurians. If I just turn the light up, you'll see the change in light on that. Now you may wonder what these sockets for, these little ports. Well, basically you can stick I think it's an RJ45 cable, like a communication cable in here, and link all the grow lights, and then you can use one of these dimmers to dim or adjust the light intensity for all the grow lights at once. But I'm just using this one in this grow tent rather than lots of them in like a big industrial scale. One point I would say is this extra feature, like I mentioned, this used to be just on here to adjust the light intensity. It's on this plate, this metal plate, and it's not actually held on to anything, so it would be ideal if there's like a screw in this side that's screwed into the grow light to make it more stable. As you can see, the main metal plate here has screws here on both sides that screw into the top of the grow light, so this is nice and stable. That's one thing we could do to improve that, but overall it's a good piece of kit. And in terms of sort of the range, this does cost I think around £300, which is an investment, and it's probably like a mid to high range grow light. You can get them for about £60 to £100, but they're nowhere near as good in terms of light intensity and control of the dimmability and the light range as well. So this is a good model, and we're going to test it over the next few months and see how we can grow things. So in terms of heat, it's not warm at all yet, but it's only been on about 10-15 minutes since the start of this video, and that's not really warmed up at all yet, but I imagine when it's on 100% for several hours it will get pretty warm, this, so we'll have to watch that. But that heat will mean it will warm up this space, which is great for the plants growing underneath. And like I said, you can adjust the height here so you can get closer or further away from the plants. If you get too close and on 100%, you might even burn the foliage, so you've got to keep it a set distance away and the right intensity. And the different intensity will also mean you will get vegetative growth or flowering and fruiting. So we'll talk about that in a future video. But in this video, hopefully you've liked the setup here and how pretty easy it was to set up, including the grow tent. Like I said, you've got these holes for the wires to go out and the vents. I've not put a fan in here yet because it's winter and I do want a bit of heat, and I'm going to leave the front door slightly open and the mesh panels at the bottom as well. I'll open those for air ventilation and we'll see how it goes on. I'll put a few more plants in here for now, but then I'll actually get some seeds going here and a heat mat to get some really good growth over the next few months. Now I really wanted to show you how light the grow light is, so it's later in the afternoon now, so the light's going a bit, so I want to show you when I open this grow tent how bright that light is. So it's still daylight, but like I said, it's overcast and getting a bit dark. And then if we just open this, look at that light shining out like the sun. Whoa. As you can see, very, very bright, and this has been on for hours and hours now. see how bright it is down there. And if I touch the top, these are warm to the touch but not overly hot, and the top of the light itself is, I mean, there's a slight bit of heat, but they're not, you know, I can put my hand there forever, it's not going to get too hot. And if I touch the LEDs or get close to them, they don't feel particularly warm either, so all the heat's getting synced into these, which is great. Again, these aren't too warm themselves. This has been on at about 75% for about 5 hours now. I've just turned it up all the way to 100% so you can see the full brightness of it. So the heat displacement is really good, and there's no sound whatsoever from this. It's completely silent, which is fantastic. So it would be annoying if you did have this grow tent set up in your house or closer to where people are working. So there we are. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week, we'll be doing more in the garden.